Hello, happy stampers. This is Kate with Kate's Paper Creations. I am a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in Washington State, and I welcome you to my weekly hashtag simple stamping video and blog. I have a little bit of a treat for you today because it's kind of a combination thing that I'm going to be doing. I have recently become interested in trying to do some what they call one sheet wonders, where they take a single sheet of 12 by 12 designer series paper and they cut it into various shapes and use it to make a selection of cards. So I am going to show you how I did that. I created my own map. This is the map I created. I don't know if you can see it very well. And so it's all laid out so I know what to cut to make the pieces I need. This particular layout, there's lots of them out there, but this particular layout will make 14 cards, okay? And I'll be showing you how they're combined to do that. Also, when I went and kind of looked at the various projects done this way, it was actually hard to find the ones who gave you a map and then also showed all the cards so you'd know how they laid out the various cards. So that's what I've tried to do here, is to give you a mat, and this is available. I'll put it up as a page on my, I think on my website. I have created a one sheet wonder for this particular, my clock is chirping again. You get that every once in a while in my videos. It's going to do it one more time yet before it quits. And I'll wait for it to finish. So, oh, there we go. Okay. So, I created a printed tutorial. And as you can see, the printed tutorial has a picture of this layout map. Then it has a picture of all the pieces that have been cut, laid out, so you can kind of see that. And then I go through step by step how to cut this. And then on the back, once you have your pieces, then I also list cards 1 through 14 and which pieces I put on each card. And I'll be showing you those in a moment. And so this is available. And yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'm going to try and put it up as a page on my website, and then the website link will be in the description box below, so that you can go there and bring up that page and print it off if you're interested in doing that. Okay, so put those aside and let's start cutting, because I want to show you in the video how everything was cut, because sometimes reading it is confusing. And I want you to be able to see it as well as, and then when you get the tutorial, that'll be just like a double thing, okay? The written one. So this is a 12 by 12 piece. I got this from the Harvest Meadow Designer Series papers. I really like this pattern because this pattern looks good no matter which direction you turn it. That's something you're going to want to be aware of, because when you're cutting these pieces out, some of them the orientation will be this way, and some of them the orientation when you use them will be this way. So you've got to pay attention to that. Now it could be an all over pattern, but if you're using something that's got an obvious up and down, top and bottom, whatever you want to call it, that's going to be affected by how it looks when you change the orientation. Okay, so that's something to be aware of when you start doing this. Okay, I'm going to use my cheat sheet here, and we are going to start by putting this 12 by 12 piece of paper into my trimmer, and I am going to make my first cut at 5 1/4. So I'm going to put that on the 5 1/4 line, just like that, and we will cut it at 5 1/4. And we're going to set this piece aside for now. And we're just going to cut this piece. We're going to take this piece and turn it long side at the top. And we are going to cut I'm looking at my directions so I don't get you confused either. We're going to cut the first one. I'm going to bring this over too. The first one is going to be 2.5 inches wide. So 2.5. There's piece one. Now, if you, let me think about this for a second. Yeah, okay. That's piece one. And I'm just going to lay them to the side, and I'm going to stack them up in the order I'm cutting them, so I'm trying to think how the best way would be to keep track of which pieces are going to go with which card. I do have a list on the back, and it would tell you which pieces, but you'd have to know the measurements of them. Okay, so there's a couple ways you could do that to keep track. You could go ahead and pre-cut all of your base pieces. So there's going to be 14 cards. You could cut basic white, thick, 8.5 by 11.5, score it and fold it, and have 14 base cards ready to go. Then you could take the pieces that you're going to put together and put them like inside. Let me get a couple pieces and show you what I mean. So you would have 14 of these pieces already folded and scored. Let's do that with this one so I can kind of show you what I mean. Push this, my whole thing moved. Push that aside. So folded and scored, okay? And then let's say you've just got a stack of them off to the side. And we've cut this first piece, which is going to be a single piece on a card. And so then I would just tuck it in here, inside the card, and set it aside. Okay, then the second piece that you would cut is, get my paper here again, is 2.5 wide. The next piece is going to be a 1.5 inch wide. So let's do that one next. This is going to be a rather lengthy project, okay? So there's a 1.5 inch wide. And then again, I just take one of my base cards. And I think I'm going to do this as we go along, because then I'll have my pieces ready for when I'm building. And I'm just going to put it inside, because that's going to be a single piece for that card, just like that. The next one is going to be 4 inches wide. Yes, 4 inches wide, just like that. And that will leave a 4 inch wide piece here. Now this piece, you want to take it, we'll set that aside for a second. You're going to bring your ruler out and a pencil. And I'm turning it over so I can make a mark on the side that doesn't show. And you're going to come 1 inch down from the top right. So 1 inch down from the top right here, and put a mark. And then you're going to come up 1 inch from the bottom left side and put a mark. Then you're going to put this back in your paper trimmer. And line up those two marks on the cutting groove. So the top one and the bottom one, and you just want to line them up. You can put your thing down and then just kind of eyeball. You can see your mark and make sure it's lined up on the groove, just like that. And then you're going to cut it. And that will give you 2 diagonal pieces. Those are going to be used on 2 different cards. Okay, so let's do that. I'll come back and burnish these better later. I just didn't have them ready beforehand. So one will go in here, and one will go in here. And I have all this detailed on the written tutorial as well, so that's going to help you out quite a bit. Okay, now this last 4-inch piece off that same piece we've been cutting is going to get turned so that the long edge is at the top like this, and I am going to cut the first one 3 inches, so it will end up being a 3 by 4 piece, just like that. So then that 3 by 4 piece is going to go into another card. And you'll put that inside the next one. Then this piece that's left, it is currently 2 1/4 by 4. And you are going to put it in your paper trimmer in this way, and you're going to cut 3 3/4 inch pieces. So there is 1, and for me it's easier if I go to this side because it gives me a place to still hold on to this. Once it's in place, set it down carefully, and 2 and 3. So you'll have 3 pieces, 3/4 of an inch by 4, and those all get used for a single card. So I'm going to get another base and put those inside this next card, just like this. And that's the next one. Okay, now we're going to bring back this piece, and it is currently 6 3/4, I believe. Let me get my paper to make sure. Yes, it is 6 3/4. And we are going to start by cutting one strip off of here that is 1 1/4 inches wide. And so it's in the paper trimmer this direction, and it is 1 1/4 inches wide. Put that down. Make sure this stayed true. Yeah, there we go. Like that. Set that piece aside. We don't need it. This piece is, we're going to wait and cut that in a minute. Let's turn this way, and we're going to start by cutting 3 1 1/4 inch pieces. And I do find it easier to go this way with these long skinny pieces. So there's 1, 2, and 3. So there are 3 1 1/4 inch squares, and they will be for another card. I find it easiest to do it this way. You don't want to mount them right away. You may want to mat the pieces or not, and you don't want to be attaching them yet because you might want to stamp around or whatever. So that's why we're doing it this way. It just helps us keep track and don't have to backtrack. Okay, then so we just cut off 3 1 1/4 inch pieces. Now we're going to cut 2 more pieces, 4 inches long. So it's 1 1/4 wide, and we're going to cut 4 inches. Come on, cooperate. And 4 inches. And out of this piece of paper, this little piece is the only piece you won't use. So we get rid of it. Okay. So another base card. And put these inside so they're ready to start mounting, because those both go on one card. Okay, now we're going to bring this remaining piece back in, and it now measures 5 1/2, right here, 5 1/2 by 12. And we are going to place it with the long side at the top. And the first piece we're going to cut is 3 inches wide. And that's good for one card. I particularly liked this map because it gives, when you see them made, you will see how different each one looked. Okay, the next cut, we need 2 half-inch pieces. So we will put this on the half-inch mark, and we will cut 2 half-inch pieces. So they're 1/2 inch by 5.5. And there's 2 of them. And again, those are used for one card. So we will do that. And tuck those aside. Okay, then the next piece is 3 inches wide. And we are going to, once that's cut, turn it, and we're going to cut a second 3-inch piece, so you'll have a 3 by 3 square. And that will be a piece for a card. Let me get that. I might be off screen when I'm doing this, but you don't need to see that. So now this piece, after we cut the 3 by 3 square off, is 3 by 2.5. And we need to cut it into 3 1-inch pieces. So you're going to want the 3-inch at the top, the longer side at the top of your cutter. And you're just going to cut 3 1-inch pieces. 1, 2, 3. So there's 3 1-inch pieces. Okay, those are going to be a card. So let's get another piece of the basic white. Line up those edges, give it a basic run. We'll fix that later. That's going to be a card also. Okay, now we still have this piece. We haven't finished. It's still 5.5, and it's now down to 5 by 5.5. And for that last 2 pieces, the first one is going to be, we're keeping that what was the longer side to the top. So it is, looking at it from here, this is 5.5 here. Okay, and we're going to turn this into one piece 1 3/4 inches wide. That will be a card eventually. Get that one. And it leaves us this remaining piece, which ends up being 3 1/4 inches wide, and that's the final number 14 card. So hopefully, despite my little faux pas that I shared with you, you have got at least some idea of how the cutting is going to go, so that you can watch it as well as read it. And this is number 14. So 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, now you're ready to start building your cards. And typically what I've seen happen is they'll just pick a particular stamp set and use that stamp only, and like make a whole batch of thank you cards or a whole batch of get well cards or whatever. I really wasn't in the mood to do that today. I decided to make them all different. So I've got a variety of sentiments from different sets. I did primarily stick with the stamp set and one stamp set for designs, and that was the find it here, I went blank. Does that ever happen to you when you're doing things? Harvest. Nature's Harvest. I knew it'd come to me sooner or later. The Nature's Harvest stamp set, which went live August 3rd for the new mini catalog and the celebration, which is good for 2 months. But the mini catalog is good for through December. Okay, now I'm going to show you the cards I made. I used a different cardstock, so they're not the pretty blue ones. I'm going to make those later. But because I used so many different stamp sets and pieces, I'm not going to show you how I built every single one. I think you'll be able to figure it out, and I'll be explaining it as I go along. So this is my first card. It uses those 3 strips that are 3/4 by 4. I matted them because this paper came from Harvest Meadow. Yeah, Harvest Meadow DSP. I believe that's what it's called. Yeah, Harvest Meadow. So this is the Harvest Meadow DSP, the same as the blue one that we cut. And this accent is crumb cake. So I used crumb cake for my mats, and that's the same color scheme on all of the cards. So this is those 3 4 by 3/4, and I matted them onto 4 1/4 by 1. So you've got the 1/8 inch all the way around. You can see how I've mounted them. Then I used the leaves from the Harvest stamp set and Nature's Harvest stamp set, and I stamped it full strength and then stamped it off second time, and then I stamped it again and stamped off to get this 3rd lighter color. And then this sentiment came from Inspired Thoughts. So there's my card number 1. Card number 2, make sure I'm doing that right. This would be considered a simple stamping card. It's just cards, paper, stamps, and ink. This one could also, to some degree, be considered a simple stamping card, other than the bow that I added here. But this is one of the stamps in the Nature's Harvest stamp set, and I just stamped it around the edges. And then this is the 3 inch by 4 inch piece, and I stamped the leaves from that same stamp set on there, just just full strength onto the DSP, and I matted the DSP to 3 1/4 by 4 1/4. And then I added this little piece here, and that piece there is the white is 1 by 1 3/4, and the matte is 1 1/4 by 2. And then this ribbon came from the I can't remember the name of the ribbons. There's a set of them. It's silver and gold, and it's in the mini. Sorry. Then this is cards number 3 and 4, and this is where I used the 2 diagonal pieces. Again, this is just that one of the leaves from the Nature's Harvest stamp set. The little hello from me came from Inspired Thoughts. No, from Pansy Patch. This came from Pansy Patch. You can see I put a piece of crumb cake just along the edge there, just on the angled edge. So that was card number 4. Card number 3, I just reversed this, and these lovely little leaves come in a trio of 3 leaves, again from that Nature's Harvest, and I used the same sentiment for that. So that's cards 3 and 4. Here's card 5. This is the 2 1/2 by 5 1/4, and it's matted onto 2 3/4 by 5 1/2, so it has a 3 inch border all the way around. And I've just attached it flat, and then I've added a sentiment piece for this one also. The white is 2 3/4 by 1 1/4, and it's matted onto one that is 3 by 1 1/2. These beads come from the brushed metallic dots for just a little bit of bling. Card number 6 is the 5 1/4 by 1 1/2 piece. It is matted onto then a 2 3/4 by 5 1/2 piece. No, this is the 1.5, excuse me, 1.5. So it was matted onto 1 3/4 by 5.5. So you have the border. This is again one of the stamps in the set, just stamped with crumb cake. And then these particular little beauties are called Gilded Gems. And the sentiment that I used here came from Encircled in Friendship. This is card number 7 in my my number 7, and the sentiment came from, and the image came from Tasteful Touches, and I stamped the image first and I stamped it off so it would be a softer color and less opaque, and then I stamped the sentiment over the top of it. The piece used for this particular one is the one that's 3 1.25 inch squares, and they're matted onto a strip that is 4 by 1.5. Now I have to tell you, I should have cut this mat the full 4 1/4, and then there would have been a little bit better spacing between these pieces. So I'm just telling you that's what you might want to do there. Okay, here's card number 8. It uses the one that is 3 by 5.5, and it's matted onto a strip that is 3 1/4 by 5.5. And then I just stamped that saying, just saying hello, that came from Prized Peony. No, Inspired Thoughts. This one came from Inspired Thoughts, excuse me. And these came from the ephemeral set. It's called Expressions. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be scattered today. Expressions in Ephemeral pieces, and these came out of other pieces. They were pieces that were punched out, and I saved them because I try to always use everything, and I just thought it looked really nice to add that little bit of bling, and I just put them on with liquid glue, a little tiny bit on the backs. So that's card number 8. This is card number 9. This used the 2 1/2 inch strips, here one here and one here, and I mounted them onto the crumb cake, and so 1/2 inch I made it bigger. So these are 1 3/4 inch mats by 5.5, and I just attached these right down the center and then put them on the card front. Before I did, I stamped this one. This is from the Prized Peony stamp set, and I just liked the way tone on tone, I thought it looked really good. And the sentiment for this one came from Inspired Thoughts. This next one, number 10 for me, is using that 3 by 3 square, the one where I ran into the trouble. Remember that one? This is the 3 by 3 square, so of course it's mounted onto a 3 1/4 by 3 1/4. And then these pieces came from the Harvest dies. And this is just out of crumb cake, this one. And then this is from that Dazzling paper that's available in the Celebration catalog for free with a $50 purchase. And it just added a nice little bit of bling to it. The sentiment came from Pansy Patch, and I added a bumblebee trinket. That's number 10. Here's number 11. Number 11 uses the 3 1 by 2.5 inch strips. Again, remember that's where I made my mistake. I had the 2.5 piece and I tried to cut it wrong. Okay, so you have 3 1 inch by 2.5 inch pieces. So they're mounted on 3 pieces to mat it 1/4 inch larger. So they're 1 1/4 by 3. Right? Make sure I get that. 2, yeah. 3 strips, 1 by 2.5, matted onto 1 1/4 by 2 3/4. There we go. This particular saying for card number 11 came from In Your Words. And this is part of the Nature's Harvest stamp set. Again, just all in the same tones of crumb cake. And these I mounted on dimensionals to give it some dimension. Card number 12, again I used the Nature's Harvest bundle. The sentiment is from the In Your Words set. And these two pieces for number 12 are the two pieces that were 4 by 1 1/4. So you've got a 1 1/2 by 4 1/4 mat. The beads I added came from, what's the name of those? Metallic pearls. And this I stamped with crumb cake, cut it out with the die that is in the set, and then I put dimensionals behind it here and here, and I cut some thin strips to put behind the stems, and so it's all fastened down and gives it, because I dimensionalized these as well. So I had to dimensionalize this stuff in the middle, and I kind of liked the way it came out. You could also just put these down tight with the top and the bottom, and it'd give you more space, and you probably could have fit that in the middle, but I liked the way it came out. Then this is card number 13. It is the 1 3/4 by 5 1/2 piece, so it's matted onto a 2 by 5 1/2 inch piece, leaves that 1/8 inch edge. The sentiment came from, turn my paper over, In Your Words. And again, this is part of that Expression in Ink ephemera pack. And I just stuck those on around the sentiment, added a little bit of a shimmer to it. I liked it. And then card number 14, this used the Pansy Patch sentiments. There's 2 of them. I put them together to make one. And this is that string, and I'm going to just reach over here and get that so that you can know what I'm talking about. I wrote it down. It's Simply Elegant Trim, and it comes in silver and gold. So that's what the trim is, and I just put some glue dots down and stuck my, swirled it around and stuck it to it so it'd stay in place. And then this sentiment piece is 1 3/4 by 2 1/2, and it's mounted to a 2 by 2 3/4, and it is attached with dimensionals over the top of the cord. And that is card number 14. So there is how I used the pieces, how I cut them, how I put them aside so I'd know how to build them. I'm going to be building another whole set of them with those beautiful blue paper. I will probably be matching them to Night of Navy, and when I get them done, I'll try and post so that you can see what I did with them. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'll kind of put these through one more time so that you can see them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. Thanks for stopping by. Be sure and visit my blog where you can get that page with the written instructions. And I thank you again for stopping by.